Hi everybody, welcome to Leon's Chainsaw Parts and Repair. I'm working on getting some primer on my XP1130 parts that I've got disassembled. I'm realizing the lighting is horrible, so let me try going on this side, see if that helps a little bit. So anyway, all of these have been sandblasted. If you've watched any of my videos, you've seen the videos of the blast cabinet, and instead of sandblasting I should say media blasted, because I'm not using sand. Using aluminum oxide. Sand has silica in it. Do the research. If you haven't, you don't want to be breathing that. So anyway, these have been blasted. They have then been cleaned again with brake cleaner, and what you want to do is go back and any of the little junk that's caught in crevices that just hasn't come out, soak it with the brake cleaner, get a little screwdriver or a pick, clean it out, get rid of it, because if you can see it, it will show up in your paint, and you do not want that. You also want to mask everything that you don't want painted, typically engine internal parts. There's the crankshaft bearing behind this. I'm replacing the seals, but nonetheless the bearing is still there. Don't want it getting paint in there. I don't want to get paint into the gear housing, so I've got a little paper towel taped up in there to cover that bearing hole. That's also a bearing that I will be replacing along with the seals. I'm going to paint that assembly, the gear case assembly, with the cover on it. No gasket, no screws, it's just on the index pins. But that'll help me avoid getting paint on the gasket surfaces that I don't want there, and it will also give me the opportunity to get paint underneath the screw heads. Crankcase gets masked off a similar way. You can see I've got that whole thing sealed up. I don't want paint in there. I don't want fuel dissolving it and it going into the carburetor later. I don't want it in the bearings or the seals. So when I put the masking tape on, the trick I like to use is a razor knife to trim it along the edges. You got to be careful. A, you don't cut yourself, and B, the tape will stick, but it's not going to stick that great as the slick surface. A gasket surface usually shouldn't be super rough, so you got to be careful to trim it, and take your time with this. It's worth the amount of time you spend on it, because it'll give you a much better result. So anyway, trying to think of other paint tips I've got. Things like the fan housing and all of those little areas. It's almost easier, you can see I've got all these hanging, it's almost easier to paint and prime the backside first, where you can do it hanging, let it dry, and then set it down face up on a piece of cardboard and do it flat. Just something I found. Trying to get paint in all of those fan grill pieces there and not have any holidays is difficult. Same thing with the air filter cover. It's almost easier to do your painting and priming and all of that on the back side first, let it dry, and then lay it flat to do the top half, the top side. You tend to get a smoother, at least I do, tend to get a smoother, nicer finish. Other tips: take all of the stuff out of your parts, like the throttle handle. You can see that everything has been removed. The trigger, the grommets, the pins, all of that stuff. It's so tempting to leave it in there and just run with it. You won't be real happy with your results. Parts that weren't painted originally, when you see them painted, it just, if you're shooting for a real restoration that you're going to put on the shelf or be really proud of, it's worth taking the time to prep everything. I know it's an old saying that's been said too many times, but your preparation makes your paint job. Putting the paint on is actually the easy part. So anyway, hope these tips will help some of you guys out there that are looking at refinishing one of your saws, and I'm looking forward to doing a video of this thing together mounted to that big 50-inch bar, because that's what's going to happen when I get done. I'm going to mount that on there, and I'm going to take it up to to my wood cutting area, and there is a big old Doug fir that's laying on the ground. I mean, it's probably half rotten by now, but at least it's worthy of sinking the bar like that into, and I can't think of a better saw than an old HomeLight gear drive to put that on. So anyway, I'm looking forward to posting that video.